Hello and welcome to Dialogue. Japan's ruling coalition has suffered a historic setback, losing its majority in the upper house less than a year after its October defeat in the more important lower house. For the first time since its founding in 1955, the Liberal Democratic Party now finds itself a minority in both houses. Is this the beginning of the end of a decade of one-party dominance in Japan? What does this mean for Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, for Japan's struggling economy, and for the future of its delicate trade talks with the United States? Join us for our discussion today, live from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Well, joining me today are Professor Liu Baocheng from the University of International Business and Economics, Kei Shimizu, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Pittsburgh, and also Benoit Hardy-Chartrand, Faculty Lecturer of Political Science and International Affairs at Temple University in Japan. Welcome to Dialogue. So Kei, I will start with you. Before the election, there were pollings, there were, opinion polls, of course, guesses, let's say, speculation. The LDP and its partner, they are going to lose. Now the results shows there's a 3 seats short of the taking control of half of the upper house. So that's obviously it's not surprising, let's say.
Yes, definitely not surprising. I think, especially close to the election, one of the parties, Sanseto, did very, very well. But actually, what I see people saying now is that the Ishiba-led Liberal Democratic Party, the LDP, actually did well considering how strong the Sanseto support was among conservative voters in Japan. So I think what was surprising, not so much the loss of seats by the LDP, but how well actually the LDP was able to suppress the surge of support for Sanseto.
So Benoit, 47 seats, probably better than the previously predicted.
Yes, certainly, but we still have to keep in mind that even though my predecessor is right that it was still able to maintain certainly a large number of seats, especially when we consider the pre-election polling, it still nonetheless remains an important blow for the LDP overall, including for Prime Minister Ishiba, who now finds himself in a much weaker position. I mean, he has been the Prime Minister of Japan for less than a year now, and he has presided over 2 elections in which the LDP has lost its majority. First, the legislative majority back in October, and now its majority in the upper house. So all in all, that puts the party in a much weaker position because it will be a lot harder for the party to enact its legislative agenda, and any other policy as well will be simply harder for the party to enact, and that will affect many other issues, including foreign policy, negotiations with the United States, for example. So all in all, even though it kind of fared a bit better than expected, it's still absolutely not a good result in the grand scheme of things for the LDP.
Yes. Kei, back to you. What do you see are the major factors, leading to the defeat? You talked about the rise of the, let's say, far-right Sanseto party. How big a factor is that?
Certainly is a big factor, and also I think a big part of the reason that the LDP failed to gain more seats was really that the kind of election that they ran, the whole economic policy in particular, where voters were extremely frustrated with the inability of the LDP to deal with rampant inflation, especially the doubling in the price of rice in recent months, and not being able to put forth a viable economic policy that would address this other than to distribute small amounts of checks to the entire population, none of which has really worked in the past. What the LDP could have done was to put forth a much more strong economic policy that would have addressed these issues by things like infrastructure projects, such as maybe the bullet train in Shikoku, or establishing industrial policies that strengthen Japan's upcoming semiconductor production in Kyushu, things like this that would have actually constituted an economic policy that would have led to higher wages instead of just distributing small checks to the entire population.
Baocheng, you're the expert on trade and economics, as Kay mentioned, also as shown in the pre-election polls, the seems number one concern for a lot of people is inflation, especially the price of rice, the staples for the people.
Yes. Well, I do not think the LDP has done a very poor job in managing the economy, because this is really something that is the undercurrent of social economics and also the social psychology issue. And also, of course, Japan is also wrestling between some of the big powers. So in which direction it's really going to go? So the Conservative Party, they stay in the rule simply because they are conservative and also maintain a liberal, Abenomics. So now they are facing quite a dilemma, because there is growing populism and also there is outcry for particularly the younger generation for strategic autonomy of Japan, and they even raise the issue of Japan first, copying Donald Trump. And so such sort of outcry can easily be expressed in the some sort of outrage, and it can easily trigger a very strong sentiment. But for example, as for Sensedo, what type of the rational leadership can they really exercise? What type of new measures can they really bring up to shore up the Japanese economy? So that's something you can easily say something I'm not very happy with, but you need to bring up a very constructive solution to that. So in that regard, I do not think LDP can really be completely replaced, given its the steady management, and also given its the institutional connectiveness with many other political forces.
Benoit, so this is a new force, let's say. Since Senseto 3 years ago, they have one seat, right, in the upper house.
They are only 5 years old.
Right, now they are 14. So the quick rise is a bit surprising. Who are those people? Who are their supporters?
Right. This has been a phenomenon in Japanese politics that has been observed and analyzed with a lot of bewilderment. And the reason for this is, as the other guest was saying, it's a very new party. It just emerged in 2020, and it's a party that emerged in a way that is different from traditional parties. A lot of it was built on YouTube videos. These are people that, especially in the context of Japanese politics, were a lot more savvy when it came to social media use. And where this party came during at the beginning of the pandemic, mostly promoting a very conspiratorial worldview. It's a party that also made its name at the beginning with a lot of anti-vaccine message that is spread to the population. So a lot of the candidates that we have seen from the Senseto, now it has 15 seats in the upper house, a lot of them are candidates who have in the past expressed some very anti-establishment worldviews that, as I mentioned, were very conspiratorial in nature. And also another important part of this message, which we simply cannot ignore, is the fact that they also played a lot on a kind of burgeoning foreigner, anti-immigrant sentiment in Japan. Over the last few years, we have seen a very massive increase in foreign tourism in Japan, but also a massive increase in foreign workers in Japan. And this party has been advocating the view that the foreign workers are the reason for stagnating wages. They've also been spreading some false information about the abuse of the system by foreigners, which is simply not borne out by the numbers. But they have overall they've been very adept and very skillful in playing on the anxieties of many Japanese people, which is what explains their very fast rise from one single seat seat in the upper house to now 15, which is quite a significant advance for them.
Well, Kay, is the rise of the Sensato Party, part of the larger trend in developed countries, in European countries? We have seen that right-wing parties like ALD, of course, in Germany, and of course in the U.S. The Republican Party, the talk of the sentiment, let's say, anti-immigrants there.
I think, there is certainly some truth to that in the sense that when the economy stagnates, and for example, in the case of Japan, the last 30 years post-bubble really has not seen significant increases in incomes for the average worker, that it's easy to find a scapegoat. And in the past, I think it's been more difficult in Japan to scapegoat immigrants and foreign workers simply because there haven't been as many, but as the former speaker said, in these last 4 or 5 years, that number has increased. And also the media in Japan has played along with this in shedding light on the significance of these foreign workers. Even though their numbers are actually quite small, the amount of media coverage that they receive is actually quite disproportionate to their actual numbers. And as a result, I think the average voter really, it has their sentiments played up by targeting these workers, foreign workers and foreign guests as someone to blame for their ill sort of circumstances, economic circumstances.
Right, Baocheng. So of course, we can say blame. We can highlight the rise of the right-wing parties in many countries. But at the same time, you understand that it's they are playing up the people's unhappiness, like dissatisfaction with the status quo, right? Economic situation in particular. People are complaining about, my pension is reduced. Well, everything is more expensive.
My real wage is also declining.
Right.
And also that I'm facing more competitors from the co-workers coming from abroad.
From other countries, right?
So
fundamentally, an economic problem?
I think, yes, fundamentally, it's really an economic problem that's related with their daily life. And now, Japan's actually immigration policy is very different to that of the United States because very few foreign workers can really gain the permanent citizenship. So it is there to fill the demographic gap. Actually, it's there to support the economy and also by doing more of the work that the local people are not willing to get engaged. So it is there to help the economy, not really to fight for the rice bowl of the existing workforces. But the fundamental issue is that the demographic issue, nobody can really address it. Even China can hardly deal with such a sort of. It's a challenge for the entire human race.
Right.
So the other is that the global supply chain is also under threat. So when Japan is highly reliant on the global sources and also global marketplace, now with the United States creating a lot more uncertainty and even getting bullish over Japan. So I do not think any Japanese leader can really stand up and say, Trump, you shut up and I do whatever I like. So this is really a long-term dependency on the United States, both on a military basis, political basis, and economic basis. So who else can do a better job to deal with such an issue? So that's something they can easily change a premier or prime minister, but who can really do a better job? I really put a question mark on it.
Right. Well, Kay, of course, people will ask what happens next. Reports say Prime Minister is going to stay, but probably will his standing be weakened? That's people's concern in terms of, say, handling the economic challenges or negotiating with the Americans.
Certainly, with his poor showing in this election, I think his negotiating stance against the United States, while perhaps maybe the results may not be all that different, certainly Japan's negotiations with the United States has not gone so well over the last few months. With the deadline of August approaching very quickly, its position is weakened somewhat with the result of these elections. Again, at the same time, it's not very clear if there's somebody else who could have done a much better job, potentially within the LDP, someone like Takaichi Sanae, who his name has been brought up as a potential replacement for Ishiba, may have a more conservative and a hard stance against the United States, but it's a very difficult position for the LDP, in particular because so many of its supporters support things like protection of rice against potential U.S. imports into Japan. Even though this could be a potential negotiation point against the Trump administration, it's not something that the conservative LDP party can easily relinquish. So they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. What do they have to put on the table in order to negotiate a better or potentially deal with the United States as far as tariffs are concerned? And same goes for automobile parts and other electronics that the Japanese economy depends so heavily on for its exports to the United States. So results certainly cannot strengthen Japan's position vis-a-vis the U.S.
Right. Benoit, share with us, we know that the U.S. is imposing 25% tariff if there's no deal by August the 1st, very soon the date will arrive. But what's the Japanese expectation? Is there room for compromise? For example, like the Europeans, as long as it could be like 20% or 50%, we will be fine with that. Is that the case?
Yeah, well, there's certainly room for compromise on the part of the Japanese, but of course they are still in a very difficult position because whatever they decide to compromise on, it will certainly affect the popularity of the party with certain constituents. Just to give you an example, for a long time, one of the gripes of the Trump administration has been the lack of opening to American cars in Japan, which many people argue are simply not suited for the Japanese market. But the United States want Japan to open more of the car markets. Another issue that Trump has been talking about is the rice. They want Japan to buy more American rice, but by doing so, by opening up the agriculture market in Japan, so the LDP is going to antagonize part of its base, the agriculture sector in Japan, which has been largely historically an important voting base for the LDP. So no matter what the party does, if the LDP wants to reach a deal with the United States, it will, first of all, it's not very much in a position of power right now with regards to the United States. And because of its new weakened position, it might be forced to enter into a deal that is not the ideal deal. And that is certainly going to put some parts of the population or some constituents of the LDP quite frustrated and leave them frustrated with the Prime Minister Ishiba.
But maybe it's easier for the party to handle. After all, the election is gone, so whatever the deal will be, it will not affect the upcoming election that soon, right? Benoit.
Well, that is true, but you still have to keep in mind that even though for the foreseeable future, the party doesn't have to face any elections anytime soon. But the reality is, Prime Minister Ishiba himself, if he reaches a deal that is considered unsatisfactory, that might increase the pressure on him to quit and to step down, bringing even more uncertainty and instability to the political system, which has already seen a large number of prime ministers that have been revolving. We're kind of going back to the revolving door politics of Japan, which we saw before former Prime Minister Abe Shinzo. So in that sense, it matters a lot because whatever happens with the U.S. is going to influence the capability of Prime Minister Ishiba to carry on as Prime Minister.
That's true, Baocheng, right?
I think Japan is pretty much experienced in playing soft but firm ball with the United States in terms of the trade and even financial negotiations. But the problem is that they get stuck because the farmers, particularly those rice farmers, are their major constituencies of the LDP. So that's something that they need to take into full consideration. So it's likely there's going to be a phased approach and dealing with more of the soft type of quantitative or qualitative measures that can really delay the influx of the U.S. The agricultural produce, and but the real danger and the more difficult situation lies, they do not know, when is the end of the whole thing that Trump is going to push through. So if by the Trump's demand, they have to significantly increase the military expenses and work more closely with AUKUS and the military ally. So if they spend more on the military side, they're going to alert more of the neighbor, including China, Korea, etc. And two is that they're going to eat in more of the social pensions and also even the real job opportunities of those ordinary workers. So that's I think it's a very difficult situation that they need to handle.
Why, let's suppose that Japan agrees to say we are going to open our agriculture market.
I don't know. I never.
They're never going to do that, right?
They're never
what about the purchasing more U.S. and importing more U.S. rice?
That's right.
But the Japanese people, they have their own preference. They have own life, life preference. Like we prefer Japanese rice to the American rice.
That's right. And also for the GMOs, that they are really highly against that. Particularly, the United States doesn't really sell a lot more rice. They sell a lot more soybeans and maize, etc. Japan has been buying quite a lot. But for the rice, keep it. But I think it's more of a phased compromise, but coupled with more of the subsidies to those farmers in order to compensate their real losses. And also there can be some other type of compensatory measures like help to improve the irrigation system, help them to build more of the infrastructure locally to reduce the cost. So and the other way is that they buy it and then they sell to a third country. So that's more like giving a direct compensation to the United States.
Right. So, Kay, the LDP obviously is in a very difficult, challenging position. Now the Prime Minister, the election is gone. What is he going to do? Like, August 1st is coming, approaching very fast. Are we going to expect, some like probably mature idea in terms of dealing the Americans here?
It's very unlikely. If there were such ideas, it should have come out by now. It's very close to that deadline, so I'd be very surprised. On the other hand, I think that Ishiba himself is not directly involved in these negotiations, even though he's the party leader. He's pretty much relegated the negotiations to people in the various ministries and his ministers. And as a previous commentator has said, what the only really negotiating points that Japan may have is to design a phased out or phased in situation where increases to Japanese imports on rice, for example, comes over the course of 10, 15, 20 years. And this might actually be a very good idea for the LDP in the sense that many of these Japanese rice growers, the farmers, are quite old. The average age close to 70 years old. So let's say in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, these tariffs are phased in or these imports are phased in, by which time most of these farmers would have largely retired. And younger farmers are farming in fewer numbers, fewer farmers, but larger plots of land. And so the number of votes that they actually constitute for the LDP is quite small. So these kind of domestic policy negotiations that they can do in combination with the U.S. Could potentially give them an exit that is not as politically damaging as we think currently.
Benoit, we know that the Japanese side has talked about seeking more independence, in dealing with Americans, in facing the pressure from Washington. But the problem, of course, is like whether it's possible, whether it's likely for them to do so, right?
Do they have the cars? I mean.
Right, as Trump said, do you have the cards?
Yeah, well, certainly it's been we have to keep in mind that if we look at the history of the U.S.-Japan alliance, since the first treaty was signed in 1954, then renewed in 1960, it's been for most of its history, it was dominated by the United States. But we have seen since the end of the Cold War, 1990s, the 2000s, and even more specifically since around 2012, when former Prime Minister Abe became Prime Minister, the Japanese has taken on a greater role gradually within the alliance. So it's much less of a lopsided alliance than it used to be during most of the Cold War. So already Japan has been a more independent actor. It's been a more independent ally, even though, of course, the United States remain its most important security provider. But the idea that Japan is entirely beholden to the United States is not quite reflective of the reality. So yes, of course, in the current context, there are some people in Japan, some parties, some politicians that talk about the country taking a more independent stance. But it's just important to put in context, to put in perspective the fact that the Japan already for more than 10, 15 years has taken on a much more independent stance, has really reinforced its military capabilities, and even recently, in 2022 more precisely, announced that it would bring its military budget to 2% of GDP, which was quite an important announcement.
Well, Baocheng, of course, last month a national survey showed that the trust level of the Japanese people in the U.S. dropped to 22%, the lowest point since 2000. Are you surprised at that? Will that play any role in terms of the how to handle the relationship with the U.S.?
Well, I think their opinion polls share with the rest of the world because Donald Trump is totally untrustworthy. For example, Obama spent years in building the pivotal to Asia and build the TPP, and then he's there to pull the plug. And then Joe Biden is there to build the Indo-Pacific partnership program, and now he's totally ignoring that. Now all of that, including the CPTPP. Now the Japan seems to be there to take a leadership role, but they do not really bring up a very constructive proposal as how to move on the next step. And so in terms of the pressure over the military expenditure, it may satisfy some of the antagonistic type of populists, but that's going to be dangerous, and that's going to alert many of the neighbors to remind of the scar that they have inflicted on their neighbors from Japan. So therefore, even now this prime minister is facing a very strong predicament because they do not know where is the coherent strategy from the United States and what are those specific agenda they really demand on Japan. So, the whole world is facing the same situation as long as they deal with the United States, not to mention Japan, who is, traditionally reliant on the United States on many fronts.
Well, Kay, briefly, Japan was absent in the recent NATO conference in Europe. Partly people say because they are not happy with the U.S. bombing of Iran, which was in violation of the UN principle there, and of course because of the tariffs there. Can Japan, as the head of CPTPP, Japan is part of the force, let's say, with pushing for free trade or rules-based world. Can Japan simply expand its relationship with South Korea and other, let's say, countries, still believe in free trade?
I think Japan has to really fight this on both fronts, still negotiate hard with the United States. And in fact, Japan now has the experience of Nippon Steel having been successful in its purchase of U.S. steel. And so there is a little bit of a confidence that as long as Japan could put forth a deal, that there could be success on the U.S. front. That's not to say that Japan will now no longer put an effort towards increasing free trade with other trade partners, including South Korea, China, and others, certainly in order to preserve its economic prowess and in order to expand its economic market.
Well, we have to stop there. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Many thanks to our guests. You can also find us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Qinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.